Hey, this is SportsSlaw with Lomas Brown, the pro.
And Deb Schneider, I'm the prof. And together, we're the pro and the prof. Hey, so welcome to SportsSlaw. Lomas, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Deb. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm real good. How's football going?
It's going. I mean, football is here, and we're almost done high school wise, and the Lions are playing. The NFL is dealing with cases of COVID that they have to deal with. So it's moving on, and that's what I expected it to do. So hopefully they'll be able to continue and finish the seasons. And I'm just saying in every sport, college, high school, and pros.
Right. Well, we just finished the World Series and had a COVID case. That was amazing. Congratulations to the Dodgers, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a long time since they got that. So, yeah, congratulations. Yeah, a lot of backlash, though, because of that. So,
yeah, there is a lot of backlash. It's just an amazing time. I do have to say, I've got to start this with, did you vote?
Oh yes, we mailed in. So we've done that. Our mail-in's been in probably a week or two ago, and actually we're going to go with our kids. So me and Wendy have done ours. So Jayla and Trey, they're going to go do theirs. So we're going to go to the polls with them when they do it. So hopefully it won't be any voters intimidation or anything crazy like that going on at the polls. People be free or feel free to go to the polls and vote, and be able to do it in peace and comfort, and, not have to worry about retaliation or, anything like that. I think that's your God-given freedom that was fought for and won. So you should be able to go out and express it.
Absolutely. 6 days to the election, I just want to let everybody know, voting is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're gonna talk about women in sports. Back to our women in sports series.
Yes.
And we've, Lomas and I have talked about this, and we've decided that we're just gonna start at the top. So we have Dawn Riley, who's the first woman ever to manage the entire America's Cup syndicate, the first American, man or woman, to sail in 4 America's Cups.
3. Yep. The first man to do 3 and 2 around the world, but I've done 4.
Wow. And you're also working, you've founded Oakcliff Sailing. And so, I mean, quite frankly, Dawn, I'm amazed. I just look at you and I'm like, wow. And so here I am with a sailor extraordinaire, a Super Bowl winner, and I'm humbled to be here with the two of you. So thank you. And thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. It's nice to talk to people from home. I'm out in New York right now, but born and bred in Michigan.
Oh boy, that Midwestern accent.
It's stronger when I talk to people from there.
So you're a sailor, and I wanted to ask you, how did you get into sailing?
My family sailed, but we weren't members of a yacht club or anything that you would think of as, traditional. And basically when I was 1 month old, they put me in a laundry basket and put me on a boat, and we went sailing. That was my baptismal party. And then we went cruising. And up until I was 13, which is when we did a cruise on our boat with our whole family from Detroit down to Lake Erie, out the Barge Canal to New York, up to Maine, down to Florida, the Bahamas, the Virgins, Grenada, and back. That I was 13. I did that instead of going to school. And when I came back from that, I realized that I could be considered an athlete, and I started to bug people to go sailing. So that was really a pivotal year, and that's when I became obsessed.
So Don, when you discovered that you could become an athlete doing this, did you start doing exercises, or did you start preparing like an athlete? Did you start eating like an athlete, sleeping like an athlete? Come on, let me know.
Let's see.
The secrets?
I'm not sure about the eating. I thought I was being healthy by drinking skim milk and eating grapefruit for lunch every day. So in my adolescent mind, I was eating healthy. But yeah, I used to go. The most bizarre thing. We lived out Harrison Township on a canal, so I used to swim 3 miles, and then I used to run 3 miles and then swim the 3 miles. And then I would come in, and my grandmother had given me a set of weights, so I would work out with weights. But my mom was always afraid that I was going to drown. And so she made me tow an inner tube behind me. I'm like, what? So if I drown, you can pull my body up? But yeah, right around that time, people haven't asked me about that. We've really, really, really pushed it hard.
Do you still do that kind of training with your? I'm seeing this Oakcliff, and
There
it looks
I am,
like
in the pink.
yeah. I mean that's the training for sailing is the weightlifting, the swimming.
Lots of aerobics, lots of weightlifting. Flexibility is super important for sailing because you're often doing something because the boat lurches. You're not in a proper form. So you have to be able to grab a spinnaker and throw it over your shoulder and not hurt your neck or your back. I always say that older athletes don't get weaker. The corners would start to fray a little bit, your neck, your elbows, your wrists, your knees. So it's not quite as contact sport as football.
Yeah.
But amount of bruises and beaten up situations, crashing around.
So what is the recovery time? If you go out sailing, what is the recovery time after doing this, or even after the exercise? And what kind of recovery time is it, Dawn?
So if you're doing it right, and I was thinking about this just the other day. I pulled a mooring out of the water here and did a lot of heavy lifting. I was a little bit sore. And there was one time 2 years ago that I went sailing and I came back in. I was like, ow, 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 ow. But I've been working out pretty regularly since I was 15 years old, and I'm 56 now. So you do the math. And it's very rare that I'm sore for more than a day or so after any sailing that I do.
Okay.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And you kind of see a trend going on now. Now I see that Floyd Mayweather, he just opened up a gym in Birmingham, and it emulates boxing. And now, and you've seen other things, D1, it was called D1, and they emulated football drills and everything. So now, are you the first to do this with the is it Oakcliff? Am I saying that? Yeah. Are you the first, or is this something that's happening now? Is it spreading?
Well, Oakcliff is actually the only center like its type in the world. There's no because it goes from everything. Let me just go with me for a few minutes here. I started sailing Detroit, family, not yacht club, kind of just was bold and broke in. When I did my second America's Cup, we called it America True. And we said, I was so freaking tired of everybody assuming and thinking, and it was true too, that it was hard to get into the sport of sailing. It wasn't hard to get into the sport of sailing. It was very hard to get in a yacht club. They were exclusive. They were racist. They were sexist. There was all that stuff. And I was like, this is bullshit. Sorry. And so we started a program which was called True Youth, and we worked with 28 different clubs across the country where I would go in and speak, and they would have the next day do a community event where they would go into at-risk communities and bring kids out that had never been on a boat before. And it was just about expanding horizons. From that, community sailing centers all over the country have started up. And then Oakcliff is the repository for, yes, some yacht club kids that don't have silver spoons or are really passionate about the sport. They're in love with it. I don't want anybody who doesn't want to be here. And a lot of the community sailing people that learned how to sail and had nowhere else to go because they weren't in the network of a yacht club. So we make sure that we have the sailing side, the high performance athletic training. You're looking at some Melgis 24s. We sent these people out for double-handed overnight in 24-foot boats. A little bit crazy, but high intensity training. We We also train people in the media. We train people in all of the skills, how to make a sail, how to fix an engine, how to fix a composite, rigging, and then the business side. So we're a job training. And then because of COVID, we started an accredited high school with the United States Performance Academy. So, and it just keeps going and going and going. We have 102 boats. So we've created our own little industry. I've said off and on that we're secretly trying to take over the world of sailing. And I know it's working because people say that back to me. They're like, how's the takeover bid going?
Well, you said on your website, it says you're building leaders through sailing.
Building American leaders through sailing. The most important part is we're using the sailing as a tool to make better humans and to make thoughtful humans and to make people that try to work and do every single thing as best as you can. And then we say you accidentally win. And that's something, I don't know, I haven't played football except for when I was 5 or 6 on the street. But in sailing, it's so complex because you have the wind and the currents and the weather and the other boats and, you know, the rake of the mast and the shape of the sail and the weight, crew weight. If you just focus on every little tiny thing, then the big picture, the winning of the race just happens. And that I think is good for life.
That's fabulous. Lomas, it reminds me of your LEAP camps.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lomas is doing the same kind of thing with at-risk students. So diversity, inclusion, that's so important. Taking sailing out of that silver spoon type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And it is changing rapidly. Lomas, tell me about your programs.
Well, I mean, like Dale was saying, we have a LEAP camp, and it just incorporates the mental portion, which is the learn portion of it. LEAP stands for learn, earn, and play. So we have basically computer-based learning with the kids, and that earns them the right to go out and play, which we do 60 minutes getting the kids out. And we got different levels of intensity, you know, from a kid that sits behind the computer all day long. They could still go outside, from a kid that's actually trying to get a D1 scholarship. We could train that kid too. So we just kind of categorize the kids where they are. And then we also have with Deb, which is important, we have also our within the learn and earn portion of it, we have a career portion of it with the kids. And that's where Deb and Crossfire comes into play, where we can actually take kids, work on resumes, look at potential job placement for the kids, actually start training the kids so they can be placed or see where they could be placed in the job society, as I like to call it. But it's just a lot of options that the kids get, which I'm happy about. But we're just trying to give them, Don, we're just trying to give them everything in a small package, but we're trying to give them as much as we can.
That's wonderful. Yeah. We have the kids come in and I do a thing called a mind map with the ones that stay here all summer. And it's basically going out, like, what are you thinking that you might be able to do all the way in your life? And they start with, well, I have to get into college. I'm like, no, after college, after you've had a family, after you've been successful, where do you live? What color is your house? We try to envision the long range. And I only do that at the end of the program, because in the beginning of the program, they're 15, they're 16. They're not supposed to know what they're going to do. They need to try things and get out there and get some experience. And then we can talk about what their dreams are.
Yeah. So Don, let me ask you this then. So let's get a little controversial. So you are in a male dominated sports. So, I mean, what has been some of the pitfalls the being in this male-dominated sports? I mean, we talked about all the good things, but what have been some of the crossroads that you've had to cross being in this particularly male-dominated sport?
Well, there've been people that have said things that nowadays you would say, no way, that's not possible. That sounds like a Trump. And then, I mean, and when it happens right to your face, you're like, are you kidding me? When, back in what this is showing Maiden, when we sailed around the world the first time, they were like, no, you're not going to make it to the end of the English Channel. You're going to cry. You're going to come back. I lost many jobs because they thought my name over the phone. Remember, before email, before fax, DAWN sounds like DON. And I would show up and I would be there and they're like, wait, no, we don't take girls. I've had the C word thrown around. I've had a fair amount, but my philosophy early on was, one, if there's nothing I can do about it, I'm just going to move right past it, go around it, go through it, whatever. But oh my God, you give me the opportunity to take you down for being racist or sexist, I will do that. And it's happened a few times. And literally, I punched one guy. But,
I love that.
I like that too.
As soon as I started accepting that I couldn't just because I was a female, I knew I was done.
Well, let's tell us about Maiden. I mean, that's such a phenomenal story.
Yeah. So the movie's worth watching. You can get it on Amazon and all that kind of stuff. And it's really a story about Tracy Edwards, who was the skipper, who was a troublesome child. Her mother says that. And she basically ran away to sea. And then I got involved with the project right about 6 months before the start. And I was already sailing professionally. I was doing the glamour stuff. I was in St. Thomas racing on Matador, a maxi boat. And, I'd made it as much as you can make it when you're 24 years old. And I got a call to do this. And the first thing I thought was, there's not any other women out here. I'm not going to go around the world with women. I want to go around the world with men. That's what I had been sailing with. And a friend of mine, this part is in the movie. She's like, get over yourself. Just because you think you're special, you're not that special. There's certainly have to be 11 other women in the whole wide world that are as good as you and want to sail around the world. And so the team was really unique. We were from 9 different countries, and not to give anything away, they didn't think we were going to survive. And then we ended up doing quite well.
So it was an all-female crew that sailed around the world.
Yep, 33,000 miles from England to Punta del Este, Uruguay, to Perth, Australia, to Auckland, New Zealand, back to Perth, up to Fort Lauderdale, and then to England. Takes about 9 months.
Wow. Do you sleep? I mean, how does that work? Tell me how that is. It shifts? How does that work?
Yep. You have watches. So you're on 4 hours and off 4 hours. The myth is, though, that you sleep for those 4 hours, because you have to when you're on deck for 4 hours, you have to do the brushing your teeth and getting wound down and getting dressed and getting undressed. In the Southern Ocean, when you're sailing around Antarctica, it takes a good 20 minutes to a half an hour just to get dressed or undressed. So you start squeezing the amount of time that you actually can sleep down. So you're pretty tired and beat up. But you know what? Especially I was 25 when we started, and when we rounded Cape Horn, 25 is like, this is so cool. I've got frostbite, dude. This is amazing. It's just like everything. Sometimes we didn't sleep on the off watch just because we were so amped up, going through those conditions with icebergs and huge seas and big winds, and still love that.
Could that be considered Boulders High, like a runner's high? Was that the Boulders High?
It could be a sailor's high, yeah.
I like that sailor's high. Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
Well, how different that was. What was that? 80, 89, 90 that you were on Maiden. So think about that. I mean, for all of our listeners, think about that. Today we'd have the cell phone out there. We'd be on the internet. You didn't have any of that.
No. And what was amazing, and people should try this a little bit more, without the technology, it is incredible how much your brain opens up and how much you remember. And, and all of your senses are working. You all of a sudden you'd have this overwhelming smell of, and I remember this distinctly, smell of the evergreens from when I was sledding when I was 6 years old with our family in Michigan, and you're in the Southern Ocean. There is no tree within, 5,000 miles of you. And you're like, oh, I remember what evergreen smelled like, and just that pure sensual, no interaction with, there was no satellite communication because there was no satellites down on, around Antarctica. Because why? The penguins didn't need GPS when they were just starting.
Wow. Hey, we have a question from Facebook here. What was your scariest moment?
The scariest moment was the second time around the world, and we'd come around Cape Horn, and on that boat, we'd lost part of our rudder, so we couldn't steer the boat very well, and we were going up current. So you're like, good, we're going faster. We have current with us, and the problem is that we had a huge storm, so we had 70 knots of wind against it. So the waves were breaking. And at that point, we were wearing safety harnesses. So we were strapped in, and we had to wear 2 harnesses because we were getting spun around and then, getting injuries and having to stitch people up. So the only reason that was so scary, yes, the conditions were crappy, was because I was a skipper and I was responsible for 11 other people's lives. That's what freaked me out a little bit, but we got through it.
I can see Lomas is about ready to start sailing.
No, none of that for me. Man. I mean, do you set it out as a strategy, just like how we get a playbook? I mean, and we have plays in that playbook. I mean, do you guys have that? Like if you hit bad weather, you do this, or you have contingency plans? How does that work too, as far as your strategy?
Yep, absolutely. So we have, like in the America's Cup, where we have 17 people on a boat and we're right against somebody else. We literally have the playbooks with, this is a jibe set. This is how we go. Now it's not as much, man on man, but you know exactly where you're going. And we had, like, just to get a spinnaker up, I counted it once. It was 72 different steps that we tried to cram in with 17 people and get it done in 13 seconds. So it's like literally like hand over here. You've got this. Let's go. Grind up, down. For the overall strategy and the planning, that's exactly what you do. And the America's Cup is different than the Around the World. It's Formula One, where you, like in America's Cup, we could change a keel overnight if we wanted. We can change a mast. It's very, very developmental. In the Around the World, it's much more endurance. So you need to know where we're going to go. What is our backup? You're out in these conditions, so you need equipment to fix anything that might break. And then in a more micro way, you're sitting on the rail and you're watching and you're knowing the loads and you're pushing everything to the limit. And you're literally sitting there going, oh, there's a dolphin. No, you're sitting there going, if that breaks, I'm going to go there. So, if this breaks, the trajectory of the block is going to come here. So I would die. I'm going to sit over here. And then you move back to, how do we minimize the damage?
Wow.
So sailing is a real sport, kind of like bullfighting, rock climbing, auto racing.
Yeah.
That's
And I say here that I realized I was an athlete, but I don't think I said, as a female, I don't think I said I'm an athlete until much later in life. And the person who really hit that home was Billie Jean King. When I went to the Women's Sports Foundation the first time, and then later I became president of the foundation. But that was one of her things. She realized that women, like, you would walk up to a woman and say, so what's your sport? Are you an athlete? And they go, oh no, I just run a little bit. I've only run one marathon. And you're like, you are
right.
So I have to credit Billie for that one.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how has it been since you've entered? Have more women now come into the sport? Are you seeing more women come into the sport?
Yes, more women, especially at the younger ages. It's the same thing as business. It's the same thing as society at some level. And it's usually when you show me the money. So, when we're all kids and you have equal opportunities, you're just boys and girls running around and sailing equal. And then it keeps moving up and up. And at some point, you realize that you're not going to have the same opportunities. And then you have to make a decision. Am I going to still fight for it? Am I still going to fight? Is it going to be worth it? What's my risk? What's my reward? And you see a lot of women dropping off. So for me, there's very few things that I still can't do. But every once in a while, it just hits you. And you're like, are you kidding me? I'm better than all those people. But they figure if they have to pay me, they'd rather get a guy for no other reason than get a guy. So there's one wrong that I'm still waiting to get back at them. And when I say get back at them, I mean go and beat them on the race course.
So what is the rewards? What type of money can you make doing this, Don?
It's a good question. I try to tell all of my friends in sailing and all my trainees that nobody said that you deserve to get paid to go sailing. It's up to you to be your own CEO, to put together your own business plan, to hustle and do a job. Now, when you're in the America's Cup, I'd say I mean, I was a CEO of America True, so I know it's a lifestyle, but you get all of your expenses paid. You get to go sailing in some amazing place like Spain or France or New Zealand. Your family usually comes with you, and then the lowest rates rate around $60,000 a year, and the highest people are around $200,000 a year. So it's not bad at all. It's a lifestyle, and it's worth it. But very, very, very few professional sailors only sail. They have other skills. They're also a sailmaker. They also get the boat ready. They are in sponsorship or marketing, CEO, project manager.
Would you say equal opportunity for men or women at this point, or still pretty much a man's sport?
In my house, it is.
I expect no less.
And it's really important. And that's we're talking, about women's, but also racial diversity. You need to have people in leadership, and it shows on a business, on a corporation. And then we'll go straight back to my wheelhouse, which is sailing and the America's Cup. Winning the America's Cup is the hardest thing to do in sailing, except for winning it the second time. Specifically because the first time you've done it, you've used all of your resources to do it as best as you possibly can. The only way to jump forward and win it again is by getting different perspectives. That is the definition of diversity. So you have different people with different ways of looking at a problem, different life experiences. You will have a stronger team, period, across the board.
So first I wanted to ask you about the food. Since I'm a big guy,
Really
I want to know about y'all eating habits and what goes on those long and tiring and challenging sails. What about the food consumption?
I don't know how we did it back in the day, but I was still on a diet the first time around the world. I'd look at pictures of myself and I'm like, what was I thinking? If I could only look like that now. But we eat freeze-dried food, and it's really kind of gross.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of stories about it, but because you can't carry you don't have a refrigeration, so you want to keep the boat light. And so then the powdered food, and you're sailing in the water, of course it's salt water. So you have a desalinator, so a water maker. So you make the water from the seawater, and then you rehydrate the food, and then you heat it up. It's really quite horrible. Now, if you
around the world, I'm thinking 9 months of that.
Oh my goodness!
No, it's bad. But if you just went to REI and got some, food, some oatmeals is one of the ones. That's not quite what we use, but you get some freeze-dried food. You'd say, well, what's she talking about? It's not that bad. But you try eating that for 9 months. It's bad.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So Dawn, you said y'all have this thing that takes the salt out of the water. So Don, all this this is constant motion. You guys are constantly moving, right? You're constantly racing, but you're having to do all these other things like eat, like to take the salt out the water, just all these other different things while you're competitively racing. Am I
not
saying
fall off the boat.
Yeah,
And go through these swells in the middle of a storm.
Yeah, that's wow.
Yeah, people often say, "Are you bored?" I'm like, "No, we're busy."
Yeah,
we're busy.
Wow.
So
impressive. We do have another question from Facebook here.
Okay. So what you're looking at on the video is some freeze-dried food right there.
Okay.
It comes in a package.
You're right. 9 months of that, I don't think I could take it, man. I'll go from a big fella to a little fella. 9 months of that.
When you get to port, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So the next question is, what do you want to accomplish next? I mean,
other than taking over the world of sailing,
I think that's a very good goal.
Good goal.
Sounds like you're almost there.
You know what? Personally, I wasn't sure that I was going to end up here at Oakcliff, because we kind of invented it. So before this, I was looking at being essentially the commissioner of sailing for the America's Cup, or, you know, the event organizer for the Round the World race, just to make money and to influence the sport. But I can't think of a better place to influence the sport, and specifically the youth, and have a wider reaching effect than I am right here at Oakcliff. And we are training the athletes that then are being called up to the major leagues, to the America's Cup, to Round the World. I mean, we have 2 of our graduates are doing their 3rd Round the World race starting next year. And then one of the kids that just came back to Oakcliff an hour ago has been interning with them up in Newport, Rhode Island. We have people in New Zealand doing the America's Cup. There are graduates, just amazing stories of dedicated individuals that I've been able to help.
Oh, that's great. So where do you see the future of sailing? How?
We'll all be sailing without masks at some point next year.
Yeah, let's talk. I mean, that's really interesting. Before we started, Dawn was showing me some of the masks that Oakcliff has actually invented. You know, one of the things that we talk about a lot is COVID, and how we're all participating in sports during COVID, which is interesting. Some of us are participating better than others. Of course, we just had, you know, a World Series where someone tested positive and then came back out. So there's that. Crazy. But, you know, you created a bubble prior to the NBA.
Yes.
So we'll say the NBA copied you. You've created a breathable face mask, basically, that you can use while sailing. And, you know, right now I'm scared to go sailing.
we got you covered. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be there.
Early on, we were watching it. I think it's a little bit because sailing's an international sport. I have a lot of friends on social media and Facebook from Spain and from Italy, so I knew that this shit was real. And then I was hoping that we were going to be able to avoid it. And then I heard the president just bold-faced lie about how they were going to ship 4 million PPE by Friday, and it was Wednesday. I'm like, what? You're a witch now? I mean, how are you going to make this happen? And on March 5th, we locked down in our bubble. We have, the good news is at Oakcliff, we have dormitories. We have an office. We have the gym. We have the boat shop. We had and plus we have the social interaction. You know, we had the kids from 15 up to, well, myself, but really up to 25, 30. And we're like, you know, we're in this. So I would go to the grocery store once every 2 weeks in my full fall weather gear with my face covering, my gloves, and shop for all 20 people that were on site. You know, take about 4 hours and do that. And we really locked down. Nobody left our facilities. We were able to then influence the laws in the state of New York and show an example. And some of our ideas were into the statutes around outdoor recreation. But we said, okay, we know that this is bad. We don't know how long it's going to last, but we're going to pretend like we're racing around the world and we don't know what's going to happen next. So we did go out and we tried just to get face coverings that we could use athletically, and we could come up with these face coverings. They're just buffs you put over your head. We assumed that we were going to be partying, so we put straw holes in so that we could have a party.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, and you have to explain the bimbo on that.
Yeah, bimbo,
because it doesn't stand for what we think it stands for.
It's the Local 1 union of the Brotherhood of the International Mark Boat Operators, and this is a special one. They don't all I
just saw that flashing up, and I thought somebody's going to say something, and so we're going to explain it.
A bunch of awesome volunteers that like to heckle me, so they made that for me. But the normal buff has just the logo, the Oakcliff logo, and the whole. But it's not your typical buff, right? So we couldn't find what we needed or what would work for us. So we went to a factory in New Jersey and we got this fabric and we tested it with having how far you could blow out a match. And this is effective as those masks that everybody wears, the blue ones that are surgical masks. And it's wicking UV, dries quick. You can double it up, keeps your hair out of your face, the whole deal.
Okay, we got to get one of those and send it to Doc R. We've got an epidemiologist, Dr. Rodney Rode, who that has been on our show 3 or 4 times, and he's very, very mask oriented, and does a lot of studies on them.
Yeah.
So that would be
for sure. And you have to wear it. So
right.
we then have had all of our programming this summer. So we have match 40 boats, which you were seeing before. So they're 40-foot boats. They're usually sailed with 5 or 6 people. And so we changed the rules. Usually you rotate through and you get on a different boat each day. Usually you all get together on a launch to get out to your boat. And we ended up changing around. So we have a 40-foot tender. We'd have one of our drivers. They would be 30 feet away. We'd get them onto their boat. And then they had to wear face coverings at all times. They had to wear life jackets so that you're seeing the boats that are for sale right now.
Let's buy one.
But so we did things like you had to be in your own bubble. We have affidavit, we have a COVID protocol. It's all available on our website. It's nice and easy. But like we even went to the point that if somebody falls in the water, we of course, and it's dangerous, we of course will go and rush in without taking the time to cover ourselves if we have to. But if they're wearing a life jacket 100% of the time, then we have a moment to pause. And then we had PPE, big covering, foul weather gear, and face covering and masks that we could have in the emergency boats. So anyway, we just kept going through, and we're pretty proud of what we did, and we're going to continue it until it's totally safe.
So social distancing and sailing, you say we can do it. We can do it. How do you think this is going to impact? Do you think that will move towards college and athletic?
In terms of the sailing?
Yes, I just thought.
Yeah,
and the Olympics is what I was trying to say.
So if we're talking about COVID and safety in sailing, in college, it's not the sailing that's dangerous. It's the 20-year-old brain cells that they're not safe on shore. So the sailing part is safe. And that's where I think the key, and you're seeing pictures of some of our guys, he's in the America's Cup right now. That's in our dormitory. So it's a nice kitchen there that's never that clean. But the fact that we had everybody together in the bubble and we had it social and we did things together, we baked bread together, just crazy stuff that I never thought I'd be doing. That was the key for our safe bubble. For going forward, it's the travel and it's the exposure and the mixing. So we're going to have to see. I'm not hopeful that they'll be sailing travel regattas in the spring. But with that being said, we've had a lot of colleges around here coming to Oakcliff to train in the bubble and on the boats as their own bubble, especially, surprise, surprise, the military academies, because they have a little more control over where the kids go.
Yeah. Don, have you guys been testing? Have y'all been doing any of that with the students or anybody that you guys might have come in?
Yes. Anybody that comes in has to have a negative test within 3 days, standard. We started off that they had to have a test 5 days out, then quarantine for 5 days, and then do another test. We've laxed that because we have this affidavit where they sign. And, when you're talking about building American leaders, you're also trusting people to say you need to. Actually, and that right there was a designer in the America's Cup now. That's cool to see the old footage. We have to trust you. And we would say this, you are attesting to the fact that you have been quarantined. And then because they are 20-year-olds, we said, and by that, we mean that you have not gone out into a public place. You do not have somebody in your household that works in healthcare or first responders. And if you do, you have a separate bathroom. So we're very, very specific on that. And we do testing. The good news is, well, Michigan and New York, the bad news was we both got hit hard. The good news is the testing became available a lot sooner than other parts of the country. So we're able to do that.
So impressive. So flipping a little bit, what would you say to a young girl who says, "Hey, I'm interested in sailing"?
Call me. You
Call me.
I just want everybody that has a desire to try it and to do it if they can. It's a lifestyle. It's a sport, and if it's passionate, if you're passionate about it, you're going to do so well. And the most important thing is, if you're not passionate about sailing, you've tried it, keep looking, because you will find something that will get you excited.
That's great. And what's the diversity? What kind of diversity do we see in sailing?
We need to do much, much better. America True, which is where we did the youth and went out into the community. Part of the reason we did the True Youth in those 28 clubs and working with these programs was because we wanted to be the diverse team, and then we weren't successful. Now, with that being said, on America Cube, my first team when I was the only female and we won, Marty was Black, and then Art was an Atlanta Falcons. Oh, you're going to kill me. Tight end, running end, tall and really fast.
Tight end. That's pretty good description. I like that.
Yeah. So we did have some diversity there, but we wanted more. I wanted it to be as equal as possible. With that being said, just by asking, and I say this to everybody, asking 3 to 5 times harder and more insistent when you're talking to somebody who's underrepresented in your sport is critical. Fast tracking leaders and decision makers into your sport is critical. And then you look around and you have a diverse team. So the cover of our brochure last year was just an awesome photo. And I looked at it when all of this came up with diversity. People said, are you going to put out diversity statements? I'm like, no, because we're living it. So on that cover was me, Susie, so 2 middle-aged women, 1 Hispanic, Lottie was Black, he was steering the boat, and 1 guy who was gay. I'm like, that just happened to be a photo, and that's when it's pure, and that's when it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah, we need more of that, as you know, living in these times that we're living in. And like you said, not only the selling concept or the selling portion of this, but it's the leaders that you're trying to build. Absolutely. And through selling, you're trying to do that. And I just think it just parallels, just sports and that kind of that, Don, that's kind of why we did this. Have this concept with this podcast is because sports just affects so many things. It parallels so many things in life that we may be going through, or so many things that we are going to go through. That sports, if you go through it, it's going to help you go through the good times, keep you even keel. Like a lot of people, sometimes you get too high, and of course, a lot of times you get too low. And sports, to me, it just kind of keeps you on that even keel. You just got to keep grinding, keep your head down, keep grinding, keep grinding. And I guess in your sport, that's the key thing, right? And the persevere and the keep grinding. It's not going to be easy, right? With them waves and you going up and down, that's a bumpy road. That's a roller coaster type of ride. So you're going to need somebody to be level-headed to keep things kind of calm. Am I correct in saying that?
You are right. I like the grinding. We literally grind the winches, and you're always there. You have to be on, and then you do have spikes around mark roundings, but you need to just keep working at it. And it's a sport that you can participate in for a really, really long time. So that it's a life. I keep saying it's a lifestyle. It's a sport, and it allows you to travel and be a part of a community. I mean, and most people know that have participated in a sport, when you're part of a team, sometimes that is just a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, sports, one of the things that we talk about is, especially in COVID, it not only does it keep us steady, but it helps our mental health. Mm-hmm. It gives us something to watch, to look at, to participate in. And if we can do it in a bubble and we can participate, that's great. That's what we need. So let me ask you this. Have you voted already?
I did vote. I was like Lomas. I mailed that in as soon as it came. Matter of fact, somebody else in the office got their ballot. I'm like, where's mine? Where's mine?
I did the same thing. My wife got hers before me. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? Because they were talking about this mail thing. So I thought I was going to have to visit the postmaster and talk to them real close and real personal, if you get my drift.
Yep.
Okay, well, we are running out of time. Any last final thoughts?
No, it's just been lovely to talk to you guys today. You know, I started off the day speaking internationally, and this is so much fun to speak to people from Michigan. They get it. And I just hope that we can get more people out there sailing, but more importantly, just keep continuing in whatever our sport is to create good human beings.
So very, very important. And I am so glad. Thank you, Dawn, for coming on and for highlighting a sport that we don't really think about much, but there's so much opportunity. And with places like Oakcliff, I mean, opportunity for everyone.
Yeah. Don, I'm gonna have to reference, I do the Lions radio, so I do the football game. So I'm gonna have to throw some of our references tonight in the game tomorrow, how we grind, and I might have to do a little grinding, telling the Lions need to grind, like Don and they'll be grinding on those is that the ship? Am I saying that right? Ship?
Yeah, it sounds fancy when you say ship. We just say on the boat.
On the boat. Okay.
On the boat. Okay. Hey, Lomas, let's go out to Oakcliff and let's do a little sailing.
Yeah.
You up with me?
Yeah.
Should do.
Don't worry. She's going to make sure you have, Dawn will make sure you have a life jacket on.
Okay.
Well, I keep pushing Lomas to do these things.
I'm kind of bougie.
And there's Ray.
I don't know about the freeze-dried food. I'm a little bougie here, so I don't know.
There's a straw in the buff. There's a straw in the buff. We're good. We're good. Okay. Well, with that, thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you, Lomas. Our women in sports, I'm really excited about this whole series. And check us out on sportslaw.com. Check us out on Facebook. And thank you, everyone, for listening tonight. And get out and vote.